A big planning row is brewing in Suffolk after the National Grid revealed more details of its plans to build dozens of new pylons. The routes, published today, pass through some of the region's most beautiful countryside.
For the energy giant National Grid, the equation's pretty simple. As this area produces more and more power, not least through offshore wind, the network needs to be upgraded.
Power lines do have a visual impact, and we fully understand that, and that's why it's very important as a company we go through a proper and full engagement process so that what we arrive at is the best route corridor which balances all the factors and minimises its impact.
There are 4 possible routes for the new 400,000-volt line and its 90 pylons between Bramford near Ipswich and Twinsted near Sudbury. Experts say going underground would be too expensive and too disruptive.
Of course, looking at proposals on paper is one thing, but it's only when you get out into the countryside and start to see the beauty of the valleys and the villages, like Kersey, which could be affected by these proposals, that you understand why this is bound to be such a protracted and passionate debate.
If existing routes can be modified to take this power, then they should be used rather than go into unbroken, beautiful countryside to put up large pylons.
Jeremy Pembroke is worried too. He's the local county councillor for the Kersey area and says local feelings can't be ignored.
My great message to the National Grid is go out there and consult with the people, but above all, remember this is one of the prettiest parts of England and that beauty has to be retained.
Public consultation begins next month. A final decision isn't expected until at least the summer of 2011, and that will rest with the government's newly formed Infrastructure Planning Commission. Kevin Birch, BBC Look East in Suffolk.
The police have sealed off an alley in Bury St Edmunds after an assault on a woman, and a lay-by in Hintlesham just outside Ipswich has also been cordoned off after another woman was attacked there last night. At the moment, the 2 attacks are not being linked. Cold case detectives are trying again to find out what happened to a boy who went missing 40 years ago today. Stephen Newing was 11 years old when he disappeared from Fakenham in Norfolk. He's thought to be dead, but his mother says she would still like to find out the truth.
The NHS is under fire again tonight, this time over one of the region's newest hospitals. The Friat Hospital in Harwich was built at a cost of £12 million, but its state-of-the-art operating theatre has yet to be used 3 years after it was built.
First, there was the unnamed doctor in North East Essex on £380,000 a year. Then the NHS in Suffolk criticised for spending £500,000 on a car park for staff. Now Friat Hospital in Harwich is under the spotlight. After opening 3 years ago at a cost of £12 million, critics say some services there are worse than at the old hospital.
I think it's pretty outrageous. I had somebody come to see me just the other week who had a stroke and who can't get the rehabilitation that they deserve and that they need because there's not enough money. And yet at the same time we see millions of pounds being spent on a hospital that's not providing the services that we were told it would.
A recent report comparing the old and new hospital shows that GP out-of-hours and X-ray services are reduced, and the new operating theatre built to replace this one has never been used. However, the PCT say when it was built, there was every intention it would be fully operational.
In the last 3 years, medical sciences have moved on quite a lot, and some of the surgery that would have been done under old kind of medical guidance now isn't quite safe to be carried out on a community hospital site.
We've knocked down a decent hospital and now they've got us a nothing really.
We're having to spend more time travelling to Clacton and Colchester than use a state-of-the-art hospital.
The PCT say a review is now being carried out to work out which services will be available at the hospital in the future. Felicity Simper, BBC Look East, Harwich.
The Royal Mail's industrial problems seem to be spreading. Postal workers in Norwich have voted for action, while staff in Kings Lynn will strike again from Monday to Tuesday. All parts of the Peterborough postcode area will have deliveries disrupted next week in the dispute over working conditions. Gale Force winds have been playing havoc with preparations for a maritime festival in Great Yarmouth. One of the marquees took off in a gust. It was only stopped from being blown into traffic because it got caught on a flagpole. 2 sea trips have been cancelled. Organisers are confident the winds will drop before the event officially starts on Saturday.
Tributes have been paid today to the television pioneer who brought wildlife to a national audience. Aubrey Buxton, who later became Lord Buxton, was the inspiration behind the Anglia television series Survival. He was 91.
Survival was first broadcast in 1961. It broke the mould. No longer were wildlife programmes scientific lectures. Survival was first and foremost entertainment. And the man behind that radical change was its creator, Aubrey Buxton, known to his colleagues simply as AB.
It started with just the one programme where AB was driving around London in his Bentley at night, saying just behind here in St James's Park there's a family of foxes in the bushes. And it developed into a series that ran and ran.
We concentrated hard on entertainment. No loss of scientific integrity, but designed to capture the maximum audience and not just to give a lecture.
Survival ran for 40 years. It was sold to every television-watching nation on Earth and ultimately led to Lord Buxton's life peerage. He co-founded Anglia Television, and inspired by his boyhood holidays in Norfolk, he also became a keen supporter of the county's Wildlife Trust.
Could be said to have changed or moved public opinion to being strongly in favour of keeping and conserving land for wildlife. So I think that's a terrific legacy as well, and of course that's a national legacy as well as being a Norfolk one.
Lord Buxton was a man who had an unfettered passion for wildlife and who was determined to share it with the world. Joel Mapp, BBC Look East, Norwich.